Right, because you don't know what happened from point A to point B.
Good morning, everyone. You are listening to Next Door Radio. You can find us on nextdoorradio.com or on the Next Door Radio app. This is Behavior 911. I'm Kellie, Syfan. I join you every Friday morning in the 10 o'clock hour, and I'm excited to be joining you today from Wake Forest Coffee Company, enjoying a nice latte from them. It is a wonderful location. I hope you get to visit soon. Now, what I want to talk about today in Behavior 911 is about how we look at different types of behavior, how we define them so that we can make sure we can address them effectively. What we call that in behavior analysis is an operational definition. What we're looking for here is a definition that's going to be very clear, very concise, and allow for anybody who reads or sees that definition to be able to identify the behavior correctly. So let's look at this from a behavior perhaps that we're trying to discourage. So let's say kicking the wall, for example. We really don't want a child to be kicking the wall. Well, that can look a lot of different ways. That could be tapping your toe against the wall, perhaps one person would say is kicking, or if your heel runs into the wall, that another person could say is kicking. Maybe what really matters and what we really care about is that kick with our toe with force. Well, why does this matter? Why are we getting into the semantics of this? Think about it this way. We've got multiple adults that are trying to support, especially around the holiday season when we may have other people coming in who want to help on support and are going to be a part of our nuclear family in holiday traditions. We want to make sure that we're all looking for and supporting the same thing. This is also really important when we're talking about having babysitters over. If we say, hey, don't let them kick the wall, and we don't have a clear definition of what that means, they may let things go that you really wanted them to block or stop, and they may be overly strict on things that don't really matter to you. So looking at that definition, kicking with force with the front of the foot at the wall, pretty clear when we're going to see a kick among the arm. Will it be perfect? Of course not, but we're going to get as good as we can. Now, we can also use this with the words and the behaviors we're trying to encourage. Making sure we have a strong definition for those behaviors allows us to make sure that we are providing the support we need for the behaviors that we actually want to see. And one that I hear a lot that parents want to encourage with their kids is be gentle. Be gentle with that kitty cat. Be gentle with your younger sibling. Be gentle with that. It's really, really fragile and breakable. And what I want to make sure that we're considering in this is, do we know what gentle means in all these cases? Do we, as the adults supporting this child, all agree on what gentle is? And from there, then does the child know what that is? Because there's a lot of different things gentle can be, just like kicking the wall can look a bunch of different ways. Being gentle can look a bunch of different ways. So, for example, being gentle with a vase might mean holding it with pretty strong hands to make sure that we don't let it fall, but also not so much that we crumple it. With a kitten, it might be much softer. It might use more of a scoop rather than a hold. And just that difference in hold is huge in what we're actually considering genuinely gentle. So let's think about this. Let's say we're going to a friend's house or to a family member's house. We know that they have a small animal or a young child, perhaps an infant, that you want your child to be gentle with. What really matters to you when you're talking about that gentleness? Is it looking at, can they approach quietly? Is it that they approach slowly? Is it once they have approached, they keep their hands to themselves? That's truly gentle for you? Is it if they're going to touch, they ask first? Is it that they use one hand really softly? Is it okay to pat? Is it okay to stroke? There's all sorts of different things that we need to consider when we're talking about what gentle means for us in these situations. So this is what it could look like. All right, we're sitting down as the adults. We know that there's going to be an infant at this next get-together. We want to make sure our child is gentle with them. We're talking as a group, and we're going, hey, gentle for us means that if they come up and they ask first, come up slowly and quietly and ask first, they can take the tips of their fingers and gently, softly, barely touching the hair on the head of the child, give little pats. Okay, notice there, I used gently inside of the definition and then I defined it. I said barely touching the hair on the top of their head. Now, if I say gently pat and a child doesn't know what that means, this, if you're watching the video, this is Also, perhaps a gentle pat for a child who doesn't yet know their strength, doesn't yet know what gentle fully means. Having that really concrete piece in the definition of just barely touches the hair or touches the skin and then releases immediately. So it's just a little gentle touch. Going through and finding what it truly means for you is going to help you define it for them and make sure they're set up for success. Here's the other thing. When you've got a bunch of different adults working together and you all have different definitions of what gentle is, you've got something very important like an infant or a puppy or what have you, or something very breakable or very fragile. If we don't agree on what gentle is, we're setting ourselves up for a disagreement. And we don't have time for that this holiday season. You've got plenty on your plate already. So going through and talking as a group as to what does gentle mean when a child interacts with this very, very important thing in our lives is going to help get ahead of those disagreements and make sure that everyone is set up with the supports they need to be able to have a really enjoyable and relaxing time together. Now, again, being very, very clear on those details. What gentle means most to you is going to be crucial. So think about it again. If we've got, say, a puppy or a kitten. So if we know with the baby, we're coming up, we're just barely touching the hairs on the top of the head. Puppy or kitten, can we gently pick up, or does gentle not include picking up at all? All these different things are things we're going to consider. And I know it's a lot to think about. Taking the time ahead of time will allow you to figure out as well what skills are missing. Do we know, or do we have the dexterity skills, have a flat hand or maybe just two fingers, or going through and using just the tips of our fingers? Do we know what those are when we're touching something that's delicate? Or are we unable to distinguish between our palm, our thumb, and the tips of our fingers? And we need to know those things ahead of time so that when we prompt in the moment, say, remember, just the tips of your fingers barely touching the top of their hair. They've got to know exactly what that is ahead of time, or we're not setting them up for success.
Hey, how are you?
Now, if this is something that you're going, I have no idea how I'm going to define all this. I don't know how to talk it through, and you need some help, feel free to give me a call. I am Kellie Syfan with Slow Pitch Behavior. My phone number is 919-579-6192. You can go to chbehavior.com, any of the request appointment buttons. I'm happy just to talk it through. I know everybody needs a little extra support during the holiday season, and I'm happy to provide that. You can also check me out online for looking for more resources in general. If there's something else that you need support on, I'm more than happy to help. What I want to leave you with operational definitions is, again, focusing in on the clarity and how quickly you can get that definition out, rather that it is concise. You want to have those details, but not go so crazy that it isn't concise. Everything that you need and nothing more than that. So it's very easy to both give to yourself, to the other adults in the room, and perhaps to the child themselves, so that everybody knows what we're looking for here, whether we're trying to increase that behavior, like being jealous, like being gentle, we don't want to increase jealousy, or decrease, like kicking the ball. Thinking about those behaviors that matter most to you, getting them defined ahead of time, talking about them as a group is going to set you up for a much more stress-free holiday season. Thank you so much for joining me on Nextdoor Radio. You can listen to any of the Behavior 911 shows on nextdoorradio.com and also catch us on the Nextdoor Radio app. This has been Behavior 911 with Kellie Syfan. I will see you next week.